Welcome back, you guys. We have something very exciting here today. We're talking about the helicopter revolution. I've got Jason here again. Jason, thanks so much for coming back and talking to me again.
Hi, Misha.
All right, guys. I want to start this video with just a little story, a little background story, and then we're going to dive right into a question and answer with Jason Hill. When I was 18 years old, I bought my first helicopter, and you guys know a lot of the story already, the background and everything, but I haven't really talked about the fact that it was absolutely terrifying. Okay, I was a kid, I was an 18-year-old kid, I had just gotten my helicopter license, I owned this aircraft. I really didn't know about ownership of an aircraft. So there was also, there's two sides of it. First of all, being a pilot and flying the aircraft and just, listening to all the sounds and, is this normal? Is this normal? All those kind of things. And then ownership of, how to take care of it, the maintenance schedule, all these kind of things. It was a really terrifying experience. And I think it would be really beneficial for owners of all kinds, whether they're private owners or commercial pilots, to have a better in-depth background and understanding about their aircraft and about the things that they should know about it, servicing and maintaining it and those kind of things as well. That story, the reason I'm starting with that is that's actually going to tie in later on into my conversation with Jason. But Jason, why are we calling this, let's just dive right into the topic of today. Why are we calling this the helicopter revolution? What do you mean by general aviation 2.0? Like, I've heard you say to me before that we're in a bit of a broken industry in the sense of general aviation for a long time has been in a decline. Can you explain that to me? Why is that?
Yeah, so in the year that I was born, back in 1978, the US manufacturers alone produced 17,811 light aircraft. And then as we went through the early 80s and fuel prices got real high and insurance got really expensive, both for manufacturers and for individuals, the industry entered a steady decline. And then by the time we got to the 1990s, a lot of the small aircraft manufacturers had stopped producing light aircraft altogether. And so we entered this sort of vicious circle where there was smaller uptake in the industry, nobody was innovating and producing new products, and the products that were out there were really very old technology and undesirable. And so the whole industry has been in a steady decline since that point, and it continues today. Well, it continues until today. Our idea for general aviation 2.0 is really the fact that if you take a holistic look at this industry and say, well, it's not working, the one thing that's for sure is we can't carry on in this way. If we want this to thrive again, we can't just keep doing the same thing. So we've very much taken a root and branch view of what have you got to do to enable innovation? What have you got to do to allow yourself to develop a better aircraft that's better suited to private owner operators? And so our general aviation 2.0 strategy is very much about how you bring new, innovative, exciting, strikingly beautiful aircraft to market, and how you do that at a price point that's viable for the industry. And more than that, I don't think it's good enough anymore to just sell people an aircraft and send them down the road with it to operate it as best they can. I think in this day and age we can be far more involved. I think we can provide better support to owners, more knowledge to owners about how to be more than just a pilot, how to be an owner-operator, how to operate safely over the long periods that these guys go between when they see an instructor.
Amazing. Yeah, and we're calling this, you're calling this a dual role model, right? Like you guys can all see on the screen here, I've got a picture of two helicopters. Now, what's interesting is these two helicopters, they look almost identical. And we're going to kind of break this out a little bit, Jason. You're going to talk about what this actually means. But, the one in the foreground here is called HX50. It's going to be coming to market 2023, like we've been talking about. Then in the background, we've got another one called HC50. And that's going to be coming to market in 2026, around that time. And these aircrafts are actually almost identical aircrafts, right, Jason? Like they look the same. They come from the same factory. They were both built to the exact same EASA certified airworthiness standard, the CS Part 27, Revision 7 of the airworthiness standard. They in every way have been built and tested and produced to the same scale, but there's a couple of major differences. Of course, the HC50 is going to come to market quite a bit later. It's going to be probably double the price point. And it's going to be used for commercial use, whereas the HX50 is going to be used strictly for private use. Jason, do you want to talk a little bit about this dual role model, why you identified that we need a dual role model, and kind of the main differences? Can you get into that a little bit?
I mean, I've been in the helicopter industry for 20 years or so now. I've watched the way that people own helicopters and how helicopters are used across all sorts of industry areas. And what became very apparent to me is light helicopters, and by light helicopters, I'm really talking about anything with less than 6 or 7 seats, are almost exclusively owned by private people. I would say 80% of light helicopters are privately owned, and it's only the remaining 20% that are truly commercially owned, so owned by people that actively put the machines to work and have to pay their own bills on it. But when you look at the manufacturers, nobody really caters for the private market. Now, it's interesting to look at the fact that a single machine could fulfill the technical requirements of both markets pretty well, the payload, the speed, but private owners have a set of unique characteristics that need a significantly different treatment, a significantly different type of support, and a significantly different business model than do commercial operators. For example, private owners are much more interested in innovation. They're much more interested in the fit and finish and the quality. They demand far more updates. They demand far more technology. And a traditional approach to certification would simply inhibit that. It makes it practically impossible to do that fast enough to keep up with the demands of private owners. So what our dual role model is all about, it's really developing a way to bring new and innovative aircraft to market to the highest possible standards, but delivering what people want. So delivering an innovative, high-tech, high-performance, strikingly beautiful aircraft that we can continue to innovate with. We can continue pushing out new technology, improved pilot safety, improved capability in the machine without being stuck to the certification timescales that slow these things down to multiple decades for big refresh cycles. So our dual role model is very much about delivering that. Through HX50, we take the latest certified standards and then we fuse that with a much more expedient way to market using the amateur-built regulatory framework, which is far better suited to private general aviation. And then in parallel, we take that same machine, we take all the same engineering, testing, development, and verification that we had to do to get a type approval for HX50, and then we push that into the certification process, which obviously takes much longer. You do an initial type certificate, and then you either have to get that verified, validated, or in some areas, they'll require a complete different type approval from scratch, depending on the territory. So obviously, that adds a great deal of time and cost to the program that private owners really wouldn't benefit from.
Now, this is incredible. This is where it really unlocks all the potential of what's possible, right? This is kind of what you're talking about. Now, fascinating. So the permit to fly amateur built category, but there's lots of things that I've heard, lots of rumors and stuff out there that aren't aircrafts that are in that category fundamentally less safe. If it's not a certified aircraft, it's not as safe. Is that a true statement, or how do you think about that?
You've got to be careful what you say there. Fundamentally, the certification process is really just a way that a government body ensures that manufacturers have met the required certification standards. Now, we have elected, well, not elected, actually, we have to, because of the size and complexity of the aircraft, meet the latest EASA CS Part 27 Amendment 7 regulations. Now, we would be the first people to meet those regulations because they're brand new. They only came out in June this year. And then similarly with the FAA requirements and also the handful of Transport Canada requirements that are additional to these because of the cold weather climate you have over there. And by fully meeting those aircrafts, and then as a manufacturer, we would also have to carry the UK CAA production approvals, flight test approvals, design organisation approvals to be able to obtain the initial type approval in a reasonable cost and time frame. So if you consider an aircraft that meets the latest standards, and in many respects, we go much further than the standards because our approach to safety is much more than a tick box exercise with the certification requirements. My view is that in this day and age, we can do a lot more than just meet certification requirements. It's possible to certify an aircraft that really doesn't suit private owner operators, and in many respects would be dangerous in their hands. So our approach is to design a machine that has significant power margins, a very benign rotor system, a grossly simplified user experience and user interface with our Hill digital cockpit. Every machine comes out of the factory with a 2-axis autopilot, and we can only deliver that level of innovation in a cost-effective package by using the dual rule approval model. And when you think of the fact that we're already meeting all the EASA certification standards, we're manufacturing the aircraft in a CAA-approved facility, and because of this unique approach, we're able to introduce all of the improvements in technology and design that make an aircraft that is genuinely focused on the needs of private owner operators. So in my view, by delivering this approach, by taking this approach and delivering the aircraft in this way, we not only meet certification requirements, but we're able to exceed them by unlocking the technology deadlock and innovating and genuinely creating a holistically safe helicopter specifically for inexperienced and infrequently flying private pilots.
Now that's beautiful, but does it come with any restrictions? Like, some of these aircrafts in these categories, there's certain airspace you can't fly in, amount of people you can have. Now, are there any restrictions in the HX50?
So this does vary around the world, and we will work with every territory to secure these permissions elsewhere. But fundamentally, because our aircraft is based on the full certified standards, and we demonstrate through our type approval process with the UK CAA that we fully meet those standards, then the operating limitations that are conveyed upon our machine are basically identical to any other machine that meets CS Part 27. You've got a factory-built aircraft to the latest certified standards. The only proviso is, under our express process control, the owner has been able to come and build 51% of the aircraft in our factory. So on that basis, no, other than the fact you cannot use this machine for commercial use, then no, there should be no significant operating limits at all on the machine. For what a private owner wants to do, this gives you everything you want.
Perfect. So any country, up to 5 people, all the performance you want, no airspace restrictions. That's incredible. Now, you obviously alluded to the fact that 51% of the aircraft needs to be built by the owner. This kind of gets back to my story at the very beginning. I think, having been educated by you about this process and what it's going to look like, first of all, I'm super excited to go to the factory in 2.5 years now and actually build my aircraft there with your team. Can you explain to me what the process is going to look like for somebody if they were to order a helicopter and they had to go to your factory and actually build it? How long does it take? What kind of assistance do they get? What does that process look like? And then how would that actually benefit them?
So in our view, it takes much more to be an owner-operator than just being a pilot. There's an awful lot that you need to really understand about an aircraft to respect the operating limits that we put in the pilot operating handbook, and to be able to safely operate your aircraft without oversight from flying instructors or other experienced pilots. And by coming to the factory, what we can do is not only can people see and feel the aircraft, not only will people get a very in-depth understanding about how the whole aircraft goes together, how all the subsystems work, but they'll essentially learn to respect the operating limits, because they'll see that for an aircraft, you can only design it to be just strong enough. You cannot over-engineer to the levels that people might be used to in their cars or other lifestyle products that they might have. And so we can completely demystify that. We can make sure people understand why these limits are what they are and how the aircraft works. In terms of the build school itself, it's a mixture of hands-on construction experience with the aircraft, so you'll get to see how composite panels are made. You'll get to be involved in manufacturing your own panels for your own aircraft. But rather than a traditional home builder type approach where the process is all designed specifically to eliminate the need for expensive machines, expensive jigs and fixtures, and all of the things that you would ordinarily do in a factory environment, then we of course have got all of that. So you come to the factory and you get to use these modern machines, these modern manufacturing processes. So we have a very fast build. The whole aircraft has been designed to be extremely quickly constructed and assembled in the factory using our jigs, our fixtures, our flow line, assembly line, the various cells for producing the different elements of the aircraft. And you'll be involved to the extent that's required to produce all of the subsystems that are relevant, and then to assemble your aircraft, working under the close supervision of our production staff. But much more than that, by having people at the factory, we can give you a lot of experience about all the things that you don't necessarily need to be involved in. There's no requirement for people to build rotor blades or gearboxes or engines or avionics, but we can give you deep insight into how those things are made, how they work, and most importantly, what you need to do to look after them, how you need to handle them as a pilot to be a safe and responsible owner-operator, and why the operating limits in the handbook are what they are. And I think it's that depth of insight and that connection and ownership they will feel of their own platform that can really drive standards up in private flying and private ownership of light helicopters.
Beautiful. So just to summarize what you just said, how many days would they be at the factory approximately? And do they need any prior experience to be able to build this aircraft?
The whole build school will be completed in its entirety over 2 weeks during normal working hours. It's suitable for adults of any age. So whether you're a retired guy or lady looking for a new hobby, or whether you're fresh out of high school and happen to have the money lying around, then you can come and enjoy the program. The program can be configured for syndicated ownership, group ownership, partners. It's a very, very flexible program. But the important thing to realize is it fully meets the letter of the law and the spirit of the law when it comes to the 51%. The key to unlocking the timescales is having a factory, having the right processes and designing an aircraft that's designed to be built in a factory.
Exactly. I love that. Okay. And we're basically done. I don't want to keep you for much longer because you're very busy. But if you could summarize this whole experience, this whole process that you're doing with the reboot of general aviation, if you could summarize it into a statement, what would it be? And any guesses on price, or could you reveal the price of this aircraft?
Well, I think the way I'd summarize it was that on the 24th of August this year, we announced our strikingly beautiful 140-knot 5-seat turbine helicopter. It's the aircraft you've always wanted to own. And we've completely reimagined the approach to developing the aircraft and the approach to owning a light helicopter as a private owner-operator. And it is entirely focused on private owner-operators. Now, when you consider private owner-operators, it's really the fixed costs of ownership that create the cost barrier to owning their aircraft. So we've designed a machine that not only is incredibly accessible at £495,000, which is unprecedented for a machine of this performance. But we've also focused holistically on managing the depreciation. So the 5,000 hour on condition life means that you have an extremely low depreciation rate and a manageable depreciation rate on the machine. This thing doesn't become worth nothing after 12 years. So that immediately knocks out the major cost barrier to a lot of people that might have bought a light helicopter previously, but could perhaps afford the capital, but couldn't afford to lose it. And we fix that problem. We open up this to a much bigger market by managing those costs properly. So the whole point of this is that we've created the helicopter that you always wanted, and now you can afford it. So that's what general aviation is all about. It's a partnership between us and the customer to deliver the best 5-seat helicopter in the world and to support private ownership properly.
Amazing. I want to leave it with that, but I just have to ask one follow-up question. How is it possible? That sounds too good to be true. I mean, I'm excited, but it sounds too good to be true. How are you able to manage to bring an aircraft to market at £495,000?
I think the fact is that there are a lot of things wrong with the aviation supply chain. And the traditional approach to certification kind of bakes those problems in. It's not the fault of the regulators, it's just the way the industry has developed. If you are a manufacturer and you're trying to design an aircraft with the simplest route through certification, the easiest way to do that is to go and pick up pre-approved blocks of aircraft and make an aircraft out of those Lego bricks, because all of those bits are pre-approved. You've got the simplest route through certification. But the problem with that is because it's such a small market, then there's only room for 1 or 2 suppliers of any of these individual items. And so that really does knock the competition out of the market. And that's in the backdrop of this slowly declining market where nobody's really innovating because nobody believes there's a market there. And so what we've done is we've sort of looked through that. We can see beyond that. We can see the potential of the people that could afford to buy this if you made it desirable enough, capable enough, and accessible enough. And by using the dual role approval model, by having a centralized approach to modern manufacturing, so by doing the big cost centers like our advanced composite fuselage, our advanced GT50 engine, and a whole new approach to avionics, you've controlled all of the major cost centers of the aircraft and bought those in-house. So now I can use the finest quality materials, I can use the finest quality modern manufacturing machines, equipment and processes, and I can develop the finest aircraft to the highest certification standards without all of this duplication of certification overhead, of margin that you get from these existing suppliers that are trying to survive on selling 20 units a year or 50 units a year. And so this isn't just a disruptive product and approach, it's a wholly disruptive business model that is absolutely necessary to be able to deliver a modern high performance aircraft into what in the first instance is a relatively small market.
Amazing. Wow. Thanks for your time, Jason. I'm not going to keep you any longer, but I just wanted to really thank you for this because you are revolutionizing general aviation and the light helicopter market, and I know I'm going to be very thankful for it, and I know thousands of other people out there are going to be very thankful for it as well. You guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this little conversation back and forth here. If you want more information, I would encourage you to go to hillhelicopters.com. We've got an entire background for what we've just talked about here. Lots more information. Very, very exciting. I can't wait to see you guys on a presentation, actually. We do presentations every day, so you can go and book yours. Ruben and I do those presentations. You learn all about the whole program. Really, really exciting. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. We're going to talk to you on the